to the 25th edition of the Braintree SkyRocket Sessions with myself and Dimitri. And today we're going to be chatting about HR again, the third in our series on HR, specifically around how do we sell it. So we're going to be looking at one or two suggestions from my perspective in terms of how we can get this going. And then we're going to move to a slide which talks about the various different product sets that we have in this space. Dimitri, how's it going?
That's wonderful, Gareth. Thank you so much for welcoming everyone and just telling them about the journey we're about to go on. So yeah, I think let's take the steps forward as we go, and I look forward to you leading me and all our viewers along this process.
Cool. So I've had a couple of interactions recently around HR and HR systems, and I've really enjoyed the last two videos that we put out. And it just goes to show it makes a difference to the content of the sessions when it's something that's when it's something that we know about and it's something that we've got experience in doing.
Couldn't agree more. Real life experiences and stories are so much easier and more relatable because it's not just about conveying a message, it's about understanding the details, the feeling, conveying the emotion, and just getting that across in this journey. And it's really showed. I mean, our past two videos have been some of the best performing, and I can't wait to see what you got to bring to this video.
Sure. So I think what's important here, and something that I've picked up just in my day-to-day is the fact that selling a system, whether it's an HR system or any system actually, really it's almost like a misnomer because we can't really sell anything. And it consists very much of a solution selling approach, which is more around just trying to understand what the issues are as much as possible. And I think the differentiator between the guy that wins the deal and everyone else that loses is the guy that wins the deal is the guy that understands the problem better than anyone else, right? So to that end, I think it's important that we figure out sort of what we're talking about. So in the HR discussion, we need to know some of the things that are important to this HR customer, so here are all the topics that he could potentially be speaking about as an HR manager, things like time and attendance, all the stuff we've spoken about, Dimitri, performance management, etc., etc. So I would suggest to the audience, if you're going to go speak to your customer about fiber, about voice, or whatever it is that you're going to talk to him about in your monthly meetings, and you want to have an HR discussion, just Google some of these items. Just Google performance management and read the little paragraph that comes up first and find out sort of what it is and why it's important to that HR manager.
Gareth, I must say I do enjoy that. At the end of the day, Google has become our library. It's got the answers to all the questions we're looking for. So 100% in agreement there. I just wanted to know from your perspective, if we look at these different problems and your personal experience with companies, which ones kind of jump out?
So I think definitely time and attendance, especially when you have a business that has a lot of employees that are on a part-time basis, that aren't maybe on the permanent payroll. Okay, so how do we pay those guys? Are we paying them per hour or per day? And how do we track whether they've come into work today? So time and attendance systems, sort of linking back into an HR tool is very important. Generally, time and attendance systems are quite specific and they stand on their own. But what's important is being able to integrate into an HR system. Another thing that's really important for HR managers I found is performance management. A lot of systems don't allow me as a manager to have a discussion with my staff member around KPIs and actually measure those on an ongoing basis and keep them somewhere for myself and for the staff member to go and look at. And if I look at all the others, they're all pretty generic, but those are the ones that sort of another big thing at the moment is recruiting and onboarding. So a lot of systems these days not only allow the HR manager to identify staff in the market, but they allow those staff members to come into the system with their CVs, and if they're successful, actually convert that CV straight into the onboarding integration process. So it kind of almost takes all of that hard work of onboarding somebody, quite a lot of it away from from the staff member or the HR team by actually just converting that CV into sort of all the fields that you would require in an HR document. And then if the guy's not successful, it just stores that CV as part of the recruitment package. So those are some of the discussion points that I've come across, which may be interesting for the guys to talk about.
Oh, well, definitely. And I mean, if we just jump back to last week's video and we look at what Angela had to say about recruitment, you can see why that's valuable. But if you look at your first 2 points as well, it's not just about time and attendance and about KPIs. It's also understanding that information roots back to financial elements. Sure. Which makes the weight of the solution that much more significant, because it then becomes about salary justification, understanding where the money's going and who it's going to. And it just provides a structure, or I suppose a different perspective to an HR system that says, yes, this may manage HR, but it directly affects your finances and your people, which may be a nice or an interesting view for the viewers to actually take with them to the customer.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think the way that the HR systems generally speak to the finance systems is the link between the two is usually payroll. And there's various different levels of integration when it comes to payroll and HR system. A lot of them just have a salary journal that happens at the end of the month, which is the only financial sort of transactional element that combines the two. But some of them are embedded, as you say, and provide real sort of value, so that, if it's a small business and you've got a small team that's maybe doing the HR and the finance, it takes away a lot of that manual Excel, like dealing with spreadsheets and then going into it just can become extremely tedious. And I suppose that's the argument for what we've been talking about, right? This is like why we are having this conversation, is because we want to try and make the lives of our customers a lot easier, right? So, Dimitri, another little trick that I use when going to go try and solution sell is to try and understand like what's happening in that space. So not only sort of what are the topics that this guy deals with on an ongoing basis, but what are the trends in HR, for example, because we're having an HR discussion. So what's new in HR? And you'll notice a couple of trends here. So what I normally do is also just go and Google a couple of those trends. So the value here is that I feel a bit more comfortable about what I'm trying to speak to, the customer, because I think, I mean, let's be honest, one of the big stumbling blocks in any discussion with any customer is the fear that at some point this guy's going to ask me a question that I don't have the answer for, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think what happens is a lot of the sales guys don't have conversations because of that fear. So what I try and do is I try and give myself just a little bit of info around the topic that I'm trying to speak to, try and understand what his day-to-day looks like, and then try and understand what's happening in his space, and then just have a conversation around those things. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an expert, but you just have to know a little bit about this guy's life. And I promise you, he'll feel like this guy's making an effort. He knows you're coming from Fox. You're not an HR specialist. But he then sees, oh, this guy's taking the time, he's taking the effort to try and understand my life a bit better. I'm going to be a bit more receptive and open to what he has to say. And he may just start telling you a whole bunch of things about his life as an HR manager. And that's the key to solution selling, right? And that's where we're trying to get to, because the more he speaks, the more he's going to start telling you about his problems, right? So if you look at this slide, which is how do I solve this stuff, what we've spoken to this up to now is like bringing insight and doing a bit of homework, right? And now we're getting to, it's actually not about your offering, it's about understanding the problem, and he's going to start telling you what his issues are, and he's going to start telling you about the manual interventions that he has to deal with, and the multitude of potential issues that he's dealing with.
And then I can just jump in on that one. I just think the benefit of selling an HR system is you can do your homework and you can understand your customer, but you also have the benefit of being an employee and understanding, what it feels like in certain instances. So conveying that emotional element is just, it's less difficult. We've been working from home. COVID has been crazy. Trying to find work-life balance, all of these things have been happening to us. So it's not something we have to imagine. And it's a shared, I suppose, feeling across the world. I mean, it's not limited to SA. And that in itself just provides an inherent value. I mean, you can Google the Great Resignation, which is something the US went through. I think that may be a little bit more limited to the Northern Hemisphere. But for us, we definitely shared a lot of the rest of the difficulties that the world has gone through with COVID. I mean, it must be almost 3 years now.
Yeah. Dimitri, you've picked out something very, very important. And actually the reason why the guys should be quite successful in selling HR, and maybe that's why I've had quite a few HR conversations from the Vox team, is because, everyone understands the fact that they're an employee, right?
Exactly.
And everyone has some interaction with an HR system, and it's just a bit closer to home. So you're right. Maybe there's less of, I'm having to reach out of my comfort zone to try and understand this thing that I want to go talk about. And it's a little bit closer to home. So you're 100% correct. So we kind of do have an understanding of the issue, but then we try and we dig and we get more information from the customer. And I cannot emphasize that more. We just carry on digging. You dig and you dig and you dig. And when you think you found the answer, you just dig more. You carry on asking questions. And eventually you'll have the problem. And that problem then, you go and consult with the consulting team. The guys can come and speak to you. They can come and speak to me. And we'll then understand exactly what we're dealing with. And once we know the problem, we can look at it objectively and go, we do have something that can address this issue and add value to this customer's life, or we don't. Okay. I can promise you that even if we don't, you've garnered so much favor with this customer through this process, and you've gotten so much closer to the customer that your relationship won't be the same again. And even though you may not be successful this time around, swings and roundabouts, it will come around in another different way. But generally, we do have a product that could address most of the requirements that an HR manager will have. And these are the products that sit in our space, right? Generally, we've got the Verde product, which I think you know quite intimately. One of the discussions that we've had a lot of success with, and I've had with some of the Vox channel managers and AMs, is this Dynamics Africa product from Dynamics Africa Foresight, which is one of our licensing distribution partners, and they've white labeled a product by PaySpace. It's called PaySpace Payroll and HR. It's very powerful, very, very cost-effective solution. And then when it comes to sort of the bigger projects, where we would be talking to the likes of a company that has maybe deployed Dynamics 365 finance and operations. That product that we'd be looking at in that space is something called Dynamics 365 Human Resources, which was part of finance and operations and then got separated out of finance and operations and was called D365 Talent at one point, and then it became D365 HR, and now just recently it's gone back into D365 Finance and Operations. So if you have finance and operations, you can access HR, or you can access it separately, but that is your end-to-end Rolls Royce. So those are the kind of the product sets that we've got in our space.
Is it Rolls Royce because our consultants make it by hand just for you?
Yeah. It's Rolls Royce because it's curvy and costs a lot of money.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I do know the rolls have a lot of hand-painted elements. So I just thought I'd play on the custom piece. Yeah. And tell me, is there a difference between it's going to be confusing, but I suppose the one Dynamics product and the other Dynamics product?
Okay, so the one's called Dynamics Africa, and that's just a name of the company. So it actually hasn't got anything to do with Dynamics. It doesn't integrate into any of our Dynamics products. It's a standalone HR system. Yeah. So if your customers out there are they've got Sage Financial Management or whatever they're using, they can use Dynamics Africa's tool. It's just the name of the company, Foresight Dynamics Africa, and then, like I say, it's a white labeled product from PaySpace. So it's not dependent on Dynamics 365 at all. It's agnostic. So, and that's what a lot of customers like. And the way that they cost it is they've got 3 licensing tiers. So you've got a light version, then you've got a premier version, and then a master version. And each tier has just additional elements added on, which sort of differentiated from the previous version. And I would say that the big boss, like end-to-end total HR solution in that Dynamics payroll and HR space is something like 190 Rand a month per person. which is very, very decent in terms of costing. Yeah.
So is that the solution you've had the most success with so far?
Yeah. And the reason for that is that it's so comprehensive and so cost effective that it really it leaves quite a good taste in the mouths of the clients that we've spoken to. So they're quite happy with the way that we know what we're doing around that space, and they're happy with the price point, and they're happy that it can do what they need it to do. So not only is it going to give them what they want, but we know what we're doing by being able to put it in properly, and it costs the right amount of money. Doesn't leave the customers feeling like there's no value question here. It's value for money, you know.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing to know. So, I mean, especially for the viewers looking for the winning horse here, you know, to try and make the right pick. It sounds like, you know, Foresight is not only the safe option, but it's possibly also the best option just for any audience, you know, whether if you're not too familiar with Verde or the F&O component or HR components of F&O, then, you know, understanding what Foresight is going to be, you know, the right move one way or another. And, you know, if we happen to have to backtrack depending on customer requirements, you know, then we do that. But at the end of the day, you, as a salesperson, you may have suggested the right product, you know, get in touch with Gareth. He knows about Foresight. He can give you what you need, whether you're from Everlytic or Vox, you know, all that information is there.
Yeah. So I think just to comment on what you've just said. So just guys understand, we've got teams that are capable of deploying each one of those solutions, and each one of those solutions are amazing in their own right. I think a cool way to differentiate between them would be maybe the size of the company, right? So, for example, I've put in Dynamics 365 Human Resources at a big education company that has over 800 staff members, and they cater to thousands and thousands of students. So that package was perfect for that business. All the functionalities that they required, they were happy with that. And I'm about to put that product again into a very big ISP in South Africa and Africa, one of the largest. So the bigger organizations that need an HR system that are dealing with multiple members of staff, that's the one that I would go for. Especially if they're dealing with a Dynamics product on the back end, like Business Central or specifically Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. But your 2-man shop up to your 50-man shop, up to your 200-man shop, that's Dynamics Africa's wheelhouse. That's exactly sort of the right space that you want to play in. When it comes to Verde, I almost feel like Verde is Verde offers like some ESS capabilities and some additional value to any HR system that's out there, right? So it's almost like they're kind of not the same in terms of being competitive products. I feel like Verde is something that can enhance an HR system that's already in place, but I don't think that you would replace your current HR system with a Verde. But then again, Dimitri, you'd be able to comment on that a lot better than I would.
Well, yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. You know, there are definitely differing views. You know, with regards to employee self-service, 100% on the money. A lot of what Verde tries to do is effectively make your workday easier or better, as it were. And there's a lot of redundant processes, or I suppose manual processes, that as employees we go through every day that can sort of be simplified through something like Verde. And you know, the interface and what it has to offer, and I suppose also the decentralization of the workload is something that is very attractive to businesses. So because now instead of having, let's say, one single person trying to either consolidate leave or process requests, you know, information and I suppose workflows are distributed throughout the company and then only move between the relevant parties. Because the reality is the CEO doesn't need to see every request, whether it's for budget or for leave or everything. That just needs to go to one person.
Yeah.
And that interaction then happens there. So, I mean, Verde does a brilliant job in wrapping around those different processes and taking them, making them simpler, making your people more efficient, and just removing frustration, as it were, from that process so that you don't have to wait on an email reply for a week.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, Dimitri, I think we've covered the three sort of elements that we've got quite nicely, and I think we could speak for hours. But I think we need to kind of wrap it up. So if we look at some takeaways, guys, when we have these HR discussions, I think take a bit of time and prepare. Have a look at what you're trying to talk about. Google some things. You don't have to know volumes of information, but just know a little bit, right? Most importantly, we want to try and understand the challenges that the customers are facing. And then once we understand them, dig deeper to understand deeper, okay? The salesperson that understands my problem the most is going to get the deal, okay? And then the fact that we have solutions is fait accompli. We've got 3 very strong HR offerings. But guys, ask for help. Ask for Dimitri's help. Ask for my help. We're available to have these discussions. Anything you want to add, Dimitri?
No, I think everything is on the money, correct there. The only thing I can maybe add is, fake it till you make it. At the end of the day, sales is a game of winning a person's trust. Say what you need to say, make sure it's within the scope that obviously we can offer. And then at the end of the day, you've got a very, very strong team of consultants that can back up what you're saying, or might take you around the corner for a little chat. But either way, if you get us to that point, it's a win for everyone.
Exactly, 100%. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Dimitri, we'll chat again next year. That's the other thing. Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for everything. It's been an awesome journey trying to get the SkyRocket Sessions up and running. Dimitri, thanks for all your help, bud. It's been invaluable.
It's just all about providing information that you can use to make more sales, and at the end of the day, so that all of us can be more successful. So thank you once again for being a part of this. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the new year.
Stay safe, guys. Cheers.